afternoon and welcome to Working Wednesday webinars. My name is Mary Jo Williams and I am the Network Training Coordinator at the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center. I will be the facilitator and moderator for today's session, Disaster Recovery and Resiliency Webinar Series, Staying Relevant to a Changed Customer During COVID-19. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted on our Facebook page and uploaded to our YouTube channel that can be found at VISBDC. Mark Wilson of the Wilson Company is our presenter for today's session, and he has a fabulous biography, so I will let him do his own introduction. For today's session, please put your questions in the chat, and they will be answered throughout the presentation. And with no further delay, I present to you Mr. Mark Wilson.
Unmute. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Wilson, and you may have met me before. I've been on the island several times, and I've been training in a series here for a couple sessions so far in a series of 8. I'm excited to be part of the island again and enjoy working with you folks tremendously. I have the Wilson Company. It's a consulting company that specializes in independently owned small businesses in retail, restaurant, and hospitality. And I've been doing it for 11 years. I mostly work through SBDCs. It seems to be my sweet spot. I'm actually retained in the state of Virginia, since I live here in Virginia, to be their retail, restaurant, and hospitality go-to guy. So I work for Virginia. I've taught in 32 other states. I developed a program called STAMP, Small Town and Merchant Program, and it focuses on independently owned retailers, restaurants, and hospitality. So next slide. So just a commentary on what we're living through right now. People wearing masks, and it's pretty obvious that everything changed almost a year ago in March. In fact, the first case was in late February of last year. So we're in it into the pandemic for a year now, and a lot of things have changed. For example, last February, I guess it was late March, early April, we ran a survey amongst 1,000 independently owned businesses, and we asked them what their primary concern was during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the answer was safety. They wanted to know that they could shop in a safe environment in the store, and that the owners will have prepared the store for the general public, and that it would be safe and antiseptic. And that was the primary concern. Well, we ran that same survey in October of 2020. So basically 6-7 months later. And the primary concern became convenience over safety. Now, what's that mean to all of you? What that means is the customer has become adjusted to the pandemic and believes that you have had time to prepare your store for people to shop in it. So they believe that you've taken all the steps to make it a safe environment. So their bigger concern now is convenience. How do I get the product the way I want it? And what's happened is the consumer, because of the Amazon and the internet giants, has become accustomed to getting product any way they feel like it. So let me tell you about the 4 A's real quick. The 4 A's are anywhere, any place, anytime, and any way. That is the customer's expectations today. And if they want to pick it up on your doorstep, then that's the way they want to do it. If they want you to deliver it, that's what they want. If they want you to ship it, that's what they want. If they want to come in your store and buy it, that's what they want. So there's basically 4 or 5 ways a customer can get their product now. And they want it the way they want it. And you need to be aware of that. And you need to be, as a business owner, prepared to deliver the product in the manner in which they prefer. Next slide. So know this, though, even though convenience has moved to the top, a customer still won't shop in a store that doesn't look like they're practicing safety and cleanliness measures. So here's my advice. My advice, and I'm assuming you have a marketing website today. In fact, I'm assuming that you have a e-commerce site as well, because you've had time to build one. But with your website, I'm recommending a short video be put on the homepage of your website. And it's 30 seconds because that's the attention span of an adult. And it says a couple things. First and foremost, it's going to tell the customer what you've done to your store to make it safe to shop in. So I want maybe a checklist, an easy graphic would be a checklist. These are the things that we've done to ensure your safety. And then the second half of that video ought to be your destination statement. Who you are, where are you, what do you sell, and what makes you different than any other store on the islands? You have to be able to say, I am the only store, and then decide whether it's in Christiansted, or is it in St. Thomas, or is it in the islands, or are you the only store in the United States that does what you do? So that's what and the video is easily put on your website by uploading it onto YouTube and then following the instructions to upload it onto your website. So have your website say it. And then I'm also recommending a couple window signs, one on your door and one in your main window that says, this is what we've done to make it safe for you to shop here. And detail in light items what you've done to make the store safe. Fair enough? Very good. Next slide. Also let them know that you're practicing 6-foot distancing once they get inside. And the easiest way to do that is to get some stickers made and put stickers 6 feet apart throughout your store. And that'll give customers a good idea of how far apart they should stay. But tell them up front that you are sticking to the distance protocol and that you're requiring some distance. The other thing that you're going to tell them is that your whole staff will be wearing a mask, and you expect them to wear masks as well. So make sure that that sign says, we wear masks. And then if some stores have decided to only let a certain number of people in the store at a time based on their certificate of occupancy, and they may have a line out front. And I don't want a customer to be surprised by that line. I want them to know in advance that you're letting X amount of people in at a time, and there may be a wait to get inside. I guess my message to you is I don't want any surprises. I want them to know all up front what's going on in your store and how you're moving forward during the pandemic. Next slide. Hand sanitizer, you ought to have it in the store. You ought to offer it to your customers. You ought to have your staff wiping down flat surfaces, the front door handle, the front door, anywhere the customer would happen to touch or you touch should be clean throughout the day. I say every couple hours, you ought to be doing a clean sweep. And you'll see it in other stores now, people cleaning throughout the day. We're trying to provide a safe environment for our customers to shop. Next slide. So are you adapting? Have you adapted? Have you, well, here's some questions for you. First of all, I've covered this. Have you made your store safe to shop in? I hope the answer is yes. But the second big question that I have for you is, have you prepared to sell your product online? Have you created an e-commerce website? Because if you haven't, you need to. Because the new normal is actually the next normal, meaning it's never going to go all the way back to where it was prior to the pandemic hitting the islands and the mainland. Things will never be completely the same as they were before. And one of the things that's happening is customers are becoming more and more comfortable with shopping online. And I read a stat the other day, it might blow you away. Globally, over 150 million people have shopped online for the first time. Isn't that amazing? That people are coming to shop online that hadn't shopped before. So some of the pundits are saying that some of the big box guys like Amazon and Best Buy and Macy's and big stores like that will do up to 70% of their business online. Now, I don't expect that to happen for independently owned businesses. I expect it to go as high as 20 to 30%. But that's more than you do now, and that's more than you've ever done before. So you need to set up an e-commerce platform to sell. And I find that the best platform, the easiest to use, the most comprehensive is Shopify. And the other thing that Shopify has is plugins or widgets that make things easier for you to operate during the pandemic. Let me give you an example. One of the things that I think you ought to do to your website right now to make it more personal is to have a live chat function. And that's that if you build your platform on Shopify, they have a widget called Tidio, Tidio, and it's a live chat. And just say that it works during your hours of operation. So let's say you're open from 10 to 7. Well, then your live chat will be available from 10 to 7. And just have someone in your store or yourself answer any texts that come in off the live chat. We've got to add some personalization to shopping online. That's the big difference. I call it your secret sauce. It's what you do for your customers in your store that make them love your store. It's you're in the business of selling feelings, not products. It's how you make the customer feel when they're shopping with you. Okay? So next slide, and we'll talk about online shopping as we go through the presentation today. So 9 out of 10 people research the internet before they ever shop in a store. I'd tell you that during the holidays, it might even been 10 out of 10. And it might even be 10 out of 10 now. And it's mostly done on their phones. So they're standing out in front of your store. In fact, when I spent time in the islands, one of the things that I highly recommended was that there be public Wi-Fi where the ships park when they're at the islands. Because the first thing a visitor is going to do is they're going to open their internet and start searching Google to find businesses that they're interested in. So 9 out of 10 people get on their phone and start searching. So you have to have a Google business page. So make sure that you've set up a Google business page, because that has 3 buttons on it: call, directions, and website. The customer doesn't need anything else to find you or start shopping with you. It's the very best thing you can do. Google my business page. So just go to Google and put in the URL GYBO, get your business online, GYBO, and follow the instructions there and make sure you have a Google My Business page. You with me? Next page, next. So you need to be able to answer these questions about your business, particularly as it relates to the pandemic. What am I selling? What is my destination statement? What do I do better than anybody else does? Who am I? Who is my target customer? Who who am I? Who have I designed my business after? Who is my primary target as a customer? Now, in the islands, it may be all tourists. It may be that your profile is to make shopping for the island visitor as easy as possible. That may be your protocol for getting the job done. So, when you were in the States, who questions about who could be answered by, are they married couples? Are they families? Are they single people? Are they male, female? Are they traveling? And in your case, they probably are. Or are they local? And do they shop at lunchtime? Do they shop in the evenings? There's all kinds of questions you can answer about your customer. And then why? Why should they shop with you? Have you all ever heard of an elevator speech? It's being able to tell a complete stranger in an elevator going from floors 1 to 4 who you are, what you do, but most importantly, why they should care. And that's why is important. You got to know why and the other way to find out why your good customers shop with you is ask them. Ask them what they like about your store, what they like about your product, and just as importantly, what they like about your service. What is it that you like that we do here that makes you like a member of our family? Because that's a good description of a good, loyal customer. They feel like they're a member of your family. They feel like they're part of what's going on there. So you have to have answers to those 3 questions. What am I doing? Who am I doing it for? And why is it important? Next slide. So I went through this already, defining your customer, but you got to know listen, there's a big difference between people younger than 40 and baby boomers from 55 to 70. And they're the 2 largest generations right now. In fact, the largest generation is 40 and younger. So you got to be paying attention to what those folks are looking for. What are their wants and desires, and how do they want their product? Do they want it delivered? Do they want to come get it? Do they want curbside? Do they want to buy it from you on your website? And you're going to find that more and more people simply choose the easiest option, which is to stay in their hotel room and buy product from you online. Or when they go home to the mainland, continue to shop with you because they loved your store when they were on vacation, so that they can continue to shop with you from the mainland on your website. And the online customer is a little different than the customer that's come in your store. The online customer is more product oriented and more of looking for convenience and efficiency. The in-store customer is looking for the overall experience. They're looking for entertainment. They're looking for an experience in your store that they've never had elsewhere. So you now have 2 distinct customer types shopping with you, online and in store. And they have different wants and desires and manners in which they want to get their product. Next slide. So I don't know if you've heard of Trader Joe's or not, but they've gone to great lengths to determine who their customer is. Trader Joe's is a small grocery store format on the mainland, and it's known for the friendliest cashiers on the planet, and it's known for the unusual products that they carry. But they went to great lengths to determine who it is that is primary shopper, because it has an effect on their marketing, their merchandising, their product assortment. I mean, the customer you're buying for dictates a lot of things in terms of how you put your store merchandise together. Well, it's an unemployed college professor that drives an old Volvo. Now, that might sound funny to you, but it tells you a lot about that person. Unemployed, an unemployed, meaning they're cost conscious. College professor, meaning they're highly educated, that drives an old Volvo, value driven. And that's exactly who their customer is. Cost conscious, well educated, value oriented. Interesting, isn't it? Next slide. So the customer has questions when they're standing out front or they're on the homepage of your website. They want to know, first of all, is it safe to shop with you? They want to know that you're prepared to deliver their product to them any way they want it. They want to know that you're financially in good shape, that you're going to be here when they need you, and that you'll be here a year from now when they return to the island if they come back. So it's important, and they're standing out there, so they're getting visual cues on the store as well. So it's important that the front of your store, the sidewalk is clean, swept, the front door is clean and painted if it needs to be painted. All the windows and glass are clean. If you have flower boxes on your front windows, make sure the flowers are alive. If the front door is glass, make sure you've cleaned it throughout the day so there's no fingerprints or smudges on it. Make sure that you've built a nice display window and know whether the customer's seeing that window from a car or from the sidewalk. Because if it's the sidewalk, you can build an intricate, detailed window. But if most of your traffic is from a car going down a street, then you have to have everything bigger, bolder, and easier to see, because they've got 3 to 5 seconds to see it. And you want to catch their attention so that they'll either pull over and park and come in, or they'll jot down the name of your store. And I'm recommending that you have the URL to your website on your window, so that if they want to get on your website, it's easier for them to do that by just having the www dot and then the URL to your store. The other productive marketing is putting a sidewalk sign out. This is an example of a chalkboard, a sidewalk sign that people could see from being on outside. And it ought to, say whether you got specials or create your own pizza, those kinds of things. It's a real good way to market as well. Next slide. So what's happening with retail trends right now? Well, we all know that it's kind of moved toward online, but I think this is redundant at this point because I've covered all the different trends that are happening right now. So let's just go on to the next slide. There's an example of an elevator speech. I referenced this a couple minutes ago, but it's basically your name, the name of your business, where it's located, and why the customer should be interested in shopping there. And that becomes a destination statement, which would be in the 30-second video that I've recommended that you put on the homepage of your website. So that's a typical elevator speech. Next slide. So we've talked about online shopping and we've talked about being in the store. Let's talk a little bit about the in-store shopping experience and shopping in the store as opposed to the website. Next slide. Let's talk about curb appeal for a minute. These are the same store. Which one would you be more apt to shop in? Well, I'm thinking the one on the right-hand side. And what's happened? What's the difference between the two stores? Well, first of all, they painted the store. They've put in transom windows above the front windows. So they put in 3 windows above their the front windows to add light. They've made the what's it called? What is the soffit has been decorated with some wood ornamentation. They've repainted the windows. They've gotten rid of the window air conditioner unit, and they've taken down the ugly patio outside those 2 windows in the upper left. They've made the store look like a friendlier place to shop. Next slide. If this was a restaurant, which one would you eat in? It's the same store, same restaurant. Now you might be asking yourself, why is that motorcycle in the exact same place in both pictures? This is Photoshop. This is taking a picture of your store and having someone Photoshop what it could look like. Very dramatic, very dramatic. Next slide. So here's a nice main street. This is a typical main street on Stateside. Not typical, it's actually a very good looking main street. And I point this out because you want to attract somebody's attention to your store. And in the case of this main street, they simply use potted flowers as an attractive point. So when you pull onto this main street, which is 2 blocks down the street, you can't help but see the bright red flowers in front of this store. So great way to have curb appeal is to use flowers and color to make your store graphically pleasing. Next slide. Okay, so here's a store in a small town in Virginia, but the town is known for its apple blossom festival. So what's this store do? They do a paper mache replica of an apple in their front yard. There is not a person that drives through this town that doesn't notice this store and the apple out front. So you can use things like that to attract attention. I'm sure there's things that the islands are noted for that you could put on the front of your store. The next slide, that is a blade sign, and I wanted to point that out because it's the best kind of sign for a business on a small street in a small town. And what's a blade sign mean? It means it hangs perpendicular to the building. So it's not flat against the front of the store. It's perpendicular and hanging off the front of the store so that you see it coming in either direction. And it used to be called hanging a shingle because it was the old way of making sure that people on a street corner could see what that block had to offer the customer if they came down that block. Well, now it's even more important because of cars. So we want the customer to be able to see your store from a distance, from their car window. And blade signs accomplish that. And you need to direct a light onto them. I think if you look closely on the left-hand side of this sign, you'll see a socket that's missing a bulb. Well, that's a bulb to light the sign. There's Mary Jo put her cursor on there so that you would see it. So blade signs, very important. Signage, very important. Next slide. Okay, let's talk about the inside of the store a little bit. Let's talk about lighting and merchandising. Good lighting in a store can improve sales by 25%. Would you like a nice 25% increase on sales? I don't know who wouldn't. The best lighting for a store, hands down, is track lighting. And this is track lighting in this store. You can see that they run down a channel. And in this case, it's a square. You can't see the front lights, but you can see the other three sides. And, you know, it was already in this store when I visited it, which I thought, oh my God, look at this. They get big points for their lighting, but you know what I discovered? They had the wrong light bulb. So when you use track lighting, don't use a floodlight. A floodlight is concave and frosted on the top. And it spreads light out. That's why it's called a floodlight. What you want instead is a spotlight. And it directs light in a narrower beam. It's glass and it's flat. That's the difference. And this narrower beam of light gets to the product. And really what you want to do is you want the store itself and the fixtures to kind of disappear. And you want the product to be what they see. And you can see on the upper right-hand side, the right-hand side of this store, how bright those packages of tea are, right where she just put her cursor. That's because these two up here, these two spotlights up top are shining straight down onto that product. That's good lighting. The other thing is that you can direct those lights whenever you re-merchandise the store. So every time you move product around in your store, you have to redirect the light so it's on the product. You can't re-merchandise your store and leave the lighting the way it was before. That's not how it's done. And I say once a month you ought to re-merchandise your store. For the locals that shop with you week in and week out, they want to see the store look different. And the same product that's been there for a couple months will seem new to them because it's in a different place in the store. That's how you re-merchandise a store. You know, back in the day when the Gap was the big clothing store for young people, once a month they re-merchandised the whole store from what they call a planogram that corporate would send them monthly. And it was a map for where they should move the product based on seasonality and what was in vogue at that time. So merchandising is important, and good lighting can improve sales by 25%. Next slide. So an artist, an art gallery wouldn't dream of, and I'm sorry, this is slightly out of focus, so it's not your computer, but an artist in an art gallery wouldn't dream of hanging paintings on the wall, without putting spotlights on them. By the way, a picture is typically hung 60 inches from the floor. The center of this painting, see this big long painting here? The center of that painting is 60 inches from the floor. Right there, yeah, right? No, the center of the painting. Come over, up, 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 center of the, that is 60 inches from the floor. And that's how museums and art galleries hang their artwork. And that ought to tell you something important. That is the target zone is somewhere between your belt buckle and 6 inches above your head is called the target zone. And that's where you put, what do you put in the target zone? What do you think you put in the target zone? You put the highest margin product. Whatever you make the most money selling should get the best real estate in your store. Because selling a lot of product at no margin doesn't give you any profit. You got to make money on the stuff. You got to sell the stuff for more than you bought it for to put in your store. So margin's incredibly important. Next slide. What do you think of this place? That's the front counter of the store. It's a bike shop. That's the front counter. You can't let your store get into this kind of disarray. You can't even see in that case right there. And that's their high margin accessories that you put onto a bicycle. There's very little margin in a bicycle. Bike shops don't make money on selling you bikes. They make money selling you on all the stuff you hang on the bike and all the stuff you wear when you're riding it. So that's an inside scoop to the bike business. I actually owned 18 bike shops of my own, and that was one of the businesses I owned as an independent business owner. But don't let your stores get like this. I mean, that's craziness. Next slide. Okay, so there's a guy named Paco Underhill, P-A-C-O, and his last name is Underhill, and he wrote a book called Why We Buy. And he's known as the guru. He's known as the expert. He's known as the guy that did all the research and all the work to figure out the American consumer. And this is a chart that's in his book that shows you the traffic pattern of the route that most commonly used by a customer when they come in a store. He says, based on his studies, that an American, if given the choice, will turn right. So you can see this customer came in the front of the store and turned directly right and went over to the right wall. And then they generally started in a counterclockwise fashion and then ended up in the center of the rear of the store. Now the dotted lines are four areas of the store. See light blue, medium blue, dark blue, blue again. Those are 25% each. So you can see that the front 50% of the store gets more traffic than the back 50% of the store. In fact, take me to the next slide. This is the value of the real estate in a store that's rectangular with the door in the center of the front. These percentages are the number of customers that make it to that point in the store. And you can see quite obviously that the front fixture on the right is the fixture that gets the most traffic, followed by the other two front fixtures, meaning in the front 50% of the store, and then the center fixture in the right there where she's moving her cursor. Look how difficult the back of the store is. 2%, 1%, 5%. And Mary Jo, move your cursor over to the right, halfway back in the store. There's a 2% there. That's where he says your cash wrap should be. That's the best place to put your cash register, because you get full visibility of the entire store, right? You can see the entire store, and it's not a heavily shopped area of the wall. It's only 2%. What should go on the 46% table, and the 35 table, and the 38 table, and the 35 table? High margin product you make money selling. Now, keep all this in mind that we're in the middle of the pandemic. So there's probably plexiglass in front of your cash wrap. And you probably have stickers on your floor that show how far people should be apart. Next slide. Paco Underhill, by the way, P-A-C-O. You could buy his book. Hopefully you could buy it from a local bookstore. I don't want you to go to Amazon, but a lot of people do. So engaging with the customer is a little more difficult now. I used to say, well, you should be in the front third of the store. You ought to make eye contact. You ought to say hello and make a greeting, a salutation, a greeting that has nothing to do with selling them anything. What's the worst thing you can say to a customer when they come in a store? Can I help you? What do 9 out of 10 customers say?
No, I'm just looking.
No, I'm just looking. They're programmed to say that. You know what you could do to change that? How can I help you today? Use open-ended questions. You know what an open-ended question is? Question, can it be answered by yes or no? They all start with who, what, where, when, how, or why. Compliment. Where'd you get that hat? That is a cool hat. Where are you from? How'd you find us? How'd you hear about us? Did you see our website? So engaging with the customer, no touch at this point. You need to stay 6 feet away, and you need to wear your mask. The old days of putting your arm around a customer or shaking their hand won't happen again probably for another year. You know, most of the pundits are telling us we'll be wearing masks for at least a year, even when everybody gets vaccinated or we have herd immunity. But that's going to take a while. It's going to take a long while. Next slide. Why do customers stop shopping with you? The number one reason, what happened here, gang? Can you get me back to the slide? There we go. Can you get us back to the slide we were on? So that's not on my screen right now. That's a small slide to the side. The opening slide is on my screen right now. I'm not sure what you all are seeing. But the number one reason people stop shopping with you is if you've been rude or unreliable to them. Not even saying hello, not even saying anything to them when they're in your store. Well, I'm never coming back here again. I didn't even get spoken to. And then a lot of decisions are being made about your store on the manner in which you ship product to them and the condition in which that product arrives at their home. Whether it's your fault or not, the customer makes it your fault. It's your fault that the box got dented when UPS threw it across the truck. It's on you. So make sure that you've gone to all the steps you have to take to make sure that when you ship a product to the customer, it gets there in good shape and that they have a beautiful unboxing experience. You want your logo on the tape. You want your logo on the tissue paper. You want a thank you note in the box. You want a coupon for future purchases at a possible discount, but a be back coupon, a coupon to incentivize the customer to shop with you again. Next slide. Hello. Something's happened to my computer, gang. My screen is not working at all on my computer, but I think I can see this small slide that's up right now.
Okay, you have the successful retail person, the guy in the suit.
I do, but it's just only about an inch by an inch. And my main screen is staying relevant to a changing customer, the first slide. I don't know what's happened. Anyway, successful retail people are typically confident, friendly, energetic, talkative, and listen. Listening is the most important thing to learning how to sell well, because you got to listen to what their needs and desires are. And you've got to ask open-ended questions to find out what they're looking for. Next slide. I can't. Okay, there. That's me. So I don't know what to do, guys. I can't. All I'm seeing is the second slide of the presentation. So thank God we got through most of the presentation before this happened. What do you think we ought to do? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Let me see if I can.
I can hear you.
Are the slides changing for you on your screen?
Let's see here.
Because I'm changing them.
No, I don't see it.
Just the list of participants has been displayed right now.
Okay, because on my screen, it's successful retail salespeople.
This is Kenny. I'm seeing you, Mark, but I'm not seeing the sharing of a screen. I'm not sure if you're the sharer or someone else is, but
Mary Jo's sharing, but
Mark, can you just pull up your screen and just talk from there?
yeah, I'll just talk from there. I'm looking at my screen now. So the next slide is a picture and of a group of customers in a store, and the title is retaining your customers. So it's incredibly important that you do all the necessary steps to get someone to shop with you over and over again. Return customers are more profitable than new customers because you haven't spent any more money attracting them to your store. They already know your store. So loyalty programs are important. And you might say, well, most of my customers are tourists. They get back on the ship and they go home. Well, they can shop with you online. They can shop with you anywhere in the world if you have an online presence. So you want to keep your customers, whether they're visiting the islands and going back to the mainland or not. You want them as customers on your website. And good, private sales, you could give them a code that only your good customers can use to get a discount. You can do, you could do 20-minute to half an hour personal shopping, live shopping through Zoom or Facebook Live with a customer, showing them in the store with your phone or your computer. So there are a bunch of things that you can do to make customers feel important and special. And know this, the 80-20 rule, there's bunches of them, but two of my favorite, 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. And 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your inventory. Those are two very important things to know. Next slide. So the next slide is reward your customers, which I just told you, how to do that with special incentives for them to shop with you. Give them a reason to shop over and over again. And if you keep customer purchase records, which your point of sale system should do now, then you're a personal shopper for your good customers because you know what they bought in the past. And that gives you a very good indication of what they'll like in the future. So be a personal shopper for your good customers and capture customer data through your point of sale system. Your community, your money. Next slide. This means that when you shop in a locally owned store, that money stays in that town to be spent over and over again. But if you go to a big box store that's on the island and you spend money there, that money is going to wherever their headquarters is located, which is probably on the mainland. So the more you spend money with locally owned business, the more money's left in the town to be spent over and over and over again. Your community, your money. Next slide. Now my slides aren't moving. This has been a technical nightmare. Let's see here. Okay. The internet affects buying decisions. Fair enough, huh? We've said that over and over again. Whether a customer is going to come to you and come into your store and shop with you, they will have been on your website before they came in. 9 out of 10. I'm saying it's closer to 10 out of 10 because online's been reinforced and talked about so much. And you ought to see your SBDC, local SBDC counselor if you don't have a good online presence, because they can help you. They can help you improve that, because you need you need a good, next slide, last slide. You need a good online presence today to be a viable business in the future. So I felt like this presentation was a little just disjointed because of our technical issues, but I think the message got across to you about we live in a different world today, but many of the things I went over today are the building blocks of good retail commerce. And they've changed because of the pandemic, but good service and the tenets of good retailing haven't changed. You're selling feelings, not product, and you're selling entertainment and the experience of shopping with you. And I'm here to tell you, you have to do the same thing on the internet. You've got to make your website a fun place to shop. The number one friction point on an online store is paying for their product. You got to make that contactless and very easy and efficient, because that's what the customer's looking for. So we've talked a lot about a lot of things today. I'm here to answer questions or entertain comments or talk about anything you'd like to talk about. No questions? Well, that's
Okay, any questions? You can raise your hand and Mark will entertain your question. Raise your hand and we'll call on you.
Absolutely.
Well, one question,
Sure.
should people stop advertising? You know, stop putting their ads on the radio because business isn't as good as it was before the pandemic?
No. No, as a matter of fact, you know, your website is only one part of your marketing strategy. So I would never tell you to stop advertising. I would say that you need to make wise decisions on where you spend your money when you're advertising. And if the radio is a strong media on the islands, use it. Because I know there are some stations that are very, very strong on the islands. You ought to use those stations. If there's a local paper that's read, you ought to support the local paper. But you get far more mileage out of doing things on the internet with your own website and social media. Gosh, I haven't even talked about social media today. I mean, it's critical that you're on Facebook and Instagram and on there every day. And run Facebook ads, because they're not expensive and it's the most cost-effective way to find customers that have the wherewithal to spend money with you. There's a difference between finding a lot of customers and finding a lot of customers that have the wherewithal to shop with you. There's a difference between those two people. And what Facebook helps you do is find those people, because they look for people that have demographics similar to the people that already like you. It's very targeted marketing. And I would tell you that somewhere between 2 and 4% of gross sales should be your marketing budget. And it's closer to 2% because of how much you can do on the internet for free. Here's a question somebody asked me that might be interesting for me to answer for you. Somebody asked me during the pandemic, does the customer that come into the store just want to be left alone? Or because they've been socially separated from our friends, neighbors, relatives, and coworkers, do they want more attention than they've ever had? And the answer to that question is you've got to do it safely, but they want more attention than they've ever had before. They're starving for it. They're starving just to have a conversation with someone. And it can be done at 6 feet with a mask on, and you'll still be safe. So the answer to that question is the customer wants service and wants good service and wants the product the way they want it. And you've got to be prepared to do that. Do you know what the customer believes is the safest way to get a product from a store right now? Mary Jo, do you think you know?
Delivered to their car?
Delivered to their home.
Oh, that's even
Or
better.
hotel. They believe the safest way for them to get their product is for you to deliver it to them.
Wow.
So if that's doable locally, then you ought to be offering that.
That sounds like good information.
The other thing I just want you to think about a little bit is on the shipping piece. If you're doing a lot more business online and you're shipping it to customers, someone is paying for that shipping. It's either you or the customer or both of you. But it impacts your gross margins because someone has to pay for that product to get there. And if you're not offering free shipping, which here I have something to tell you real quick. Here are 3 stats that I think you'll find pretty amazing. 67% of consumers want 2-day or less shipping. Now, Mary Jo, you'll tell me that's crazy off the island. It'll never happen. But on stateside, they want 2-day or less. 64% of the customers want it free. And 72% of customers want it sustainably packaged, meaning the stuff you use to pack it ought to be recyclable.
But what's the tip for getting the free shipping in terms of the base cost, the base size of the orders that people normally place?
Well, there's 2 ways. One is having a certain amount that they spend to get free shipping. So let's say go to your point of sale system and look for what your average sale is. And let's say it's $75, your average sale. Well, then you ought to make free shipping kick in at 100 or 125 because you want the customer to spend a little more to get the free shipping. The only other way to have free shipping is to put it into the margin of the product. Actually mark the product up, the amount it would cost to ship it. And then you might be losing some money on the ones you actually ship, but you're making more money on the ones you end up not shipping but selling directly in the store. But someone's paying for it. UPS and FedEx and USPS and DHL, they're not sending it anywhere for free.
Okay, well, I think that's a good note to end on in terms of us getting ready for our hiatus, Mark.
Yes, indeed.
We will be on break for 2 weeks. So we will return on Wednesday, March the 17th, which just happens to be St. Patrick's Day for anybody that's interested. And our topic that day will be e-commerce from brick and mortar to click and mortar.
That's what I got on my calendar.
That's what he has on his calendar. So we'll look forward to seeing you guys back then. That should be a very interesting presentation on the 17th of March.
Those are 2 o'clock your time?
2 o'clock Atlantic Standard Time. Yes, sir. And for those of you that are going to be with us on Tuesday we have webinar Tuesday, and we'll be covering resources for veteran-owned businesses. And also next week, we'll start our basic bookkeeping our basic bookkeeping series. And on Friday next week, we have tax basics for farmers, fishers, and other business owners. So we have a full week next week, even though Mark won't be with us, but we'll look forward to seeing him on St. Patrick's Day, and maybe he'll have a couple of leprechauns and what do you call those things, 4-leaf clovers for us.
I hope so. And listen, I apologize for the technical difficulties. We'll make sure this doesn't happen again.
Well, we'll try our darndest. And on behalf of the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center, our State Director, Ted Gutierrez, and the wonderful staff that works for the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center